Hey everyone, welcome to TPUSA Live. We got a fantastic live stream for you today. I'm Jon Root, and look who we got here.
I'm Kendall Jones, TPUSA contributor, and we're going to break down and tell you what you can look forward to on today's live stream.
Oh yeah, we got some great stuff for you. You know how we started off, Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec. I know he's on Charlie Kirk's show a little bit earlier today. He's been breaking down everything Kyle Rittenhouse, and he's going to tell you why the prosecutors lied in order to criminalize self-defense. We've talked so much about how this is not just a trial about Kyle Rittenhouse, this is a trial about the Second Amendment, and it's talking about self-defense.
Yeah, he's broken down everything, and there's some interesting points that, I mean, the prosecutors have absolutely made crazy. So.
Yeah, it's nuts. The defense, I think, did a great job, and Jack broke that down yesterday. He's also going to tell you how MSNBC celebrates mob violence in Kenosha as the trial comes to an end. He's going to talk about an Antifa journalist that's accused of predatory behavior by women and so much more in Human Events Daily. And right after that, we're sitting on the couch. You're going to be there.
We're sitting here. We're back, baby.
You're going to be here for 3 days, right?
I'm here for 3 days, so y'all are going to get a lot of Kendall this week.
Oh, yeah. I love the animal print, by the way, too. It's just on brand.
I always feel like I have to have a little something that's on brand whenever I come here, so I always try to do something a little outdoorsy.
And then you're also going to have another big gun girl on the couch today,
yes,
Paige Roux.
Paige Roux is going to be here, and we're going to be talking all things guns.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be great. And then we also got Alex Weber that's going to be back. He's an American Ninja Warrior. He also has a brand new book out that we're going to talk about. And Uridel is going to be back. He's going to share his story. So he owns a gym in Southern California, and he's going to tell you all about how he's pushed back against vaccine mandates, masks, everything. He's been the guy to look to when it comes to small businesses.
That's what we love to see. So we're also going to be talking about everything Kyle Rittenhouse and all of the media responses. But in the one last thing, people are trying to destigmatize pedophilia. I don't even know what that means, but I'm interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, you're going to find out, and you'll find out too, because this is from a university professor, and it is like, it's not even What in the World Wednesday, but it's one of those where it's like, this is going to blow your mind, and these are people that are teaching your kids and teaching the next generation.
We got to get away from that.
It's disgusting, but you're going to love this. We got Reloaded, brand new episode with Paige Roux, and she's going to talk about what to look for in a firearms instructor.
I mean, that's so important whenever you go to the gun range. You need to make sure you have someone that can coach you properly. And she's also going to walk you through on how you can become a firearm extraordinaire.
Ooh. That's going to be amazing. I know that's right up your alley. Right after that, we got Breakaway with yours truly. We're going to sit down with Trent Merrill. He's a Paralympian. We actually went to college together.
No way.
Yeah, we went to Azusa Pacific together. He just won a bronze medal in the Tokyo Games out there. So he breaks down what's it like in the Olympic Village, what was it like actually getting that medal, and we get to hold it ourselves. I've never held an Olympic medal before, and it was an amazing experience.
And you'll never get to except for whenever he's here, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Because I'm not going to win an Olympic medal myself. There's no way.
There's absolutely zero way.
That's going to be it. Yeah, actually, I would say zero. There's not a good chance that I'm going to become an Olympian. I'll just keep talking on this couch. That's what I'll keep doing for a living. Right after that, you got Politics with Alex Clark. She's going to talk all about the White House shade war. And it's so funny because Jack's been breaking this down for, it seems like, months now. CNN and all these leftist mainstream media outlets are finally catching up. She'll break that down, give her take. Also, Busy Phillips. Do you know who that is?
I've heard of her. She has a pop show, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's got like a pop culture show herself, and then she's been in reality shows. So I guess she's kicking Chris Pratt while he's down. Alex will break that down. And then Magic Johnson, NBA legend, he actually doesn't write his own tweets. He has an assistant following him around. She'll break that down.
Maybe that's what I need. But it sounds like I need to watch Politics because I am not up on my pop culture.
No, I'm not up to my pop culture myself, so you always got to go to Alex Clark. But before we let you guys go, you need to tell everybody about your Christmas auction you're doing.
Yes, so every year I do a big Christmas Angel fundraiser, and I host a big auction, and there's other ways to get involved besides the auction. But I do it to help buy for Christmas for kids in need in my local area and across the U.S. So I do this big fundraiser, host an auction, and all of the proceeds, 100% of the proceeds, goes to buying Christmas Angels. And our goal this year is to buy for over 100 kids.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll give you more details about that later on in the live episode, but it's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to share it with y'all.
She'll break that down on the couch, and it's great seeing how you're giving back and partnering with different people to make sure that people have a fantastic Christmas. But coming up next, we got Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec, brought to you by First Liberty. See you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. On today's show, a lot of stories, so make sure you stay tuned. Number one, Kyle Rittenhouse's prosecutors lie to criminalize the act of self-defense. Next, MSNBC celebrating mob violence in Kenosha. Third, an Antifa journalist, what does that even mean? I know, we'll talk about it. An Antifa journalist accused of predatory behavior by left-wing women. And finally, empty vassal. President Biden kowtows to Chairman Xi Jinping in a virtual meeting. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily. So we just had the closing arguments in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, who's been put on trial for a clear act of self-defense. I want to go through a montage of this, but before I play the montage, I want to be very clear about what you're seeing. All of this incident, just like many incidents that we've seen lately here in the 21st century, was on film. Multiple angles of this were captured on film. We can also, a lot of cases like this, if you take it back a step, a lot of cases like this in the past, it's, it was a dark alley, a guy came up, tried to mug me, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I live in Philadelphia for a long time. That's, kind of how it goes. And so it's really, you don't have much chance to explain what really went wrong, because if one person walks away, then the other person obviously can't present their side of the story. Well, we live in the 21st century now. And so if you're a lawyer out there, or if you're involved in anything like this, you gotta understand, it's all gonna be about the video. You have to understand the video. And of course, video played a crucial role in this case in a way that I haven't really seen before in any criminal case. So this never should have been brought, because we can all see on the video that it's a clear act of self-defense. But that's not with these corrupt prosecutors, DA Binger and DA Lunchbox. I call him Lunchbox. His name's Krause, but I call him Lunchbox, and I think we all know why. Look at what the arguments and the jousting were back and forth that day in court.
You that Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take that gun and use it on the defendant, because they know you can't claim self-defense against an unarmed man like this. You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun, when you're the one creating the danger, when you're the one provoking other people. The defendant fired 4 shots at Joseph Rosenbaum and caused 5 wounds total.
Mr. Binger, the person who has made it his personal goal of putting my client's head on his wall. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what it did. And it means he's been cutting corners. This active shooter BS is something that Mr. Binger is trying to sell you people. Has he shot anybody since Car Source 3? No, he hasn't. He's running to try and get to the police. Mr. Binger must live in fairy tale land to think that Kyle could stop, put his gun down, and say, hey, everything's good, leave me alone, I'm going to the police. Unfortunately, that's not how the real world works. This was real world. He has as much right to go there as anybody else in the city of Kenosha and be unmolested by the likes of Joseph Rosenbaum, Kelly, and Joshua Zeminski.
Everybody takes a beating sometimes, right? Sometimes you get in a scuffle and maybe you do get hurt a little bit. That doesn't mean you get to start plugging people with your full metal jacket AR-15 rounds, and no, bullets are not bullets. And we heard testimony about that.
If you bring a gun, you lose the right to self-defense. Everybody takes a beating once in a while. Everybody takes a beating. Really, Lunchbox? Is that your message to the women, then the daughters of Kenosha, that they should just take the beating? Forget that Second Amendment and that whole right to bear arms and all that business. No, understand, Chairman Mao knew this, and I will quote Chairman Mao on this. Political power grows from the barrel of a gun. The people of the United States have the Second Amendment, and that is why this country is not Australia right now. That is why we're not China. That's why we're not Russia. That's why we're not anywhere else, because the people in this country have implicit power. Literally, The Second Amendment is there to protect all the other amendments and all the other rights of the American people, because Chairman Mao was right when he said that famous maxim. You have the right to self-defense. And these prosecutors, they lied. They lied all the way through this entire thing. We've seen the video. We know exactly what it shows. No, you don't have to take the beating when a murderous mob is running after you. And why is it, by the way, that a murderous mob of left-wing rioters always seems to have a pedophile in it? I'm just not sure what that is about. Not sure what that's about. They will do it to you. They will do this to your children. They will do this to anyone. This is the Soviet system that we saw behind the Iron Curtain. Do not let this happen in America. So they say that conservative media is sometimes that it's an echo chamber, that it's a silo, that it's just full of right-wing propaganda, and you can't listen to only that. And I say, okay, fine. All right, fine. If your criticism of conservative media is that we're not doing enough to step outside our comfort zone, then I will do that the same way that I cover CNN. We're also going to cover MSNBC, Microsoft NBC. Remember, Bill Gates's Microsoft NBC. You know, I think a lot of people forget that the MS in MSNBC stands for Microsoft. So I'm just going to remind everybody, Microsoft NBC. Let's go and take a listen to the wonderful jurist, Katie Fang, lawyer, not jurist, over at MSNBC, the legal analyst there, who of course went to Yale. Yale, of course, was a slave owner. And because she went to Yale, she is, of course, the beneficiary of slave owning. Why do I bring this up? Because that's exactly the thing that I tweeted at her when she had Yale in her Twitter bio, and she actually took it out of her Twitter bio right before she blocked me. Take a listen.
Let's be clear. You don't have to have a judgment about whether or not the protests were good or bad. What they did on the defense is they basically wanted to inflame the jury to think that it was totally fine for Kyle Rittenhouse to come in on his white horse, this knight on the white horse, to save that community of Kenosha, which he had no business being there in the first place, right? So putting aside whether or not you want to have a qualitative value judgment about what was going on in terms of those protests, Kyle Rittenhouse's behavior had to be reasonable that evening in question. And he was not physically harmed. You have 2 dead people, multiple injured others. And the reality is it was hands, feet, a skateboard. Hands, feet, and a skateboard versus an AR-15. That's what that was. The thing that we heard in the rebuttal close, I think that really made sense and that countered what the defense was attempting to do today, was the fact that they called Rittenhouse a chaos tourist. Kind of reminded you a little bit about the January 6th insurrection, right? This idea that you had people that showed up armed to do harm. And that is exactly what Kyle Rittenhouse did as a chaos tourist. He showed up. He didn't mean to improve the community. And you know what? If the jury listens to the law and applies the facts and the evidence to the law, then they should be able to come back with at least one conviction. Because remember, each victim is a separate count. It's not all of the victims under one count. And so the prosecution actually has more than one bite at the apple to be able to convict Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kind of a chaos tourist, right? Kyle Rittenhouse was the chaos tourist, not the mob of people that came up from Chicago, the people who came in from Portland as part of the riot kitchen, or any of the people that have been roving the country. By the way, you want to talk about Chaz? Where I was for a week last year out in Seattle, night after night after night, where people were coming from all around the country, armed militants of the John Brown Gun Club of Puget Sound, that took over a 6 square block radius of the downtown of one of the most important cities in America's great Pacific Northwest. No. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Those are the good guys. Those are the good guys. It's the people who are trying to defend their communities, the people who are trying to stand up for the right thing, the people who don't want to see their town burned to the ground. Those are the people who are wrong. Understand, They've turned this into team sports. Kyle Rittenhouse isn't on their team, and so Kyle Rittenhouse becomes the target. It was the same thing, by the way, that happened to Jake Gardner up in Nebraska. Go look up that case. He was also somebody who took steps to defend himself when a mob was coming after him, and they ruined his life. He later committed suicide. But I argue that Jake Gardner was actually murdered by the media. He was murdered by this political age we live in. You need to stop. Stop justifying political violence when it's on your side. Period. End of story. Never allow that in the United States of America. This is a hard line. And I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on, quite frankly. You could be a liberal, you could be a socialist, you could be a communist. Obviously, you know that if you're a tanky, then you're someone that, of course, supports violence. So obviously that's not gonna work. I will stand with anyone who takes the non-violence pledge. I held a rally out front of the White House in June of 2017, calling for an end to the normalization of political violence in America. I went to Shakespeare in the Park and crashed it, protesting when they were stabbing Donald Trump on stage night after night after night, and people were cheering and applauding. I saw it with my own eyes. I don't want to live in a country like this. I don't want to live in a country where we're justifying violence because it serves our political ends or the targets are our political opponents. No, I reject that, and I reject it in all of its forms. And I would ask that every single other member of the media, the Katie Fangs of the world, to stand up and say, we don't want to go to that place. Take the nonviolence pledge. Well, a new report is out by my friend Andy No over at the Post Millennial, and I'm going to present this report to everyone because it's truly disturbing, and it shows one of the greatest issues that's going on in our country right now, and is that we've empowered extremists to use their political words and their political opponents as targets for their extremism. And when they're on the left, in many cases, number one, they're doing so in bad faith, and number two, they're doing so only to support themselves and to destroy the lives of others. Andy No, and you can go find him on Locals, go support him there. He's also got a Patreon up. He writes, an Antifa, quote unquote, journalist has been accused of predatory behavior by women, expressed racist and anti-Semitic views, and called for murders. A Los Angeles-based self-identified Antifa member turned, quote unquote, again, journalist, has been accused of predatory behavior by women. His name is Chad Loader. He's a 45-year-old, well-to-do white male from California with a professional career in digital security. What does he do? He makes false accusations against people for a living, and then raises money while trying to get people doxxed, fired, targeted, lying about people, lying about Jewish Americans, lying about Jewish websites, attacking the state of Israel. And we now find out he is also a predator towards women who originally had supported him. Let's talk a little bit about that, shall we? In August 2020, Twitter user Slade of Yaupon posted screenshots of a direct message from Loader, where he sent her an unsolicited shirtless photo of himself next to a young child. She wrote, "Women should be able to participate in activist communities without dealing with creepy dudes. I only followed Chad Loader because I thought he would be a useful comrade. I'm angry." Jackie Singh, a left-wing cybersecurity expert who worked for Joe Biden's 2020 campaign on security matters, initially defended Loader for being an ally, but then later tweeted tersely, "I retract my support for this individual." In May 2021, a second woman posted screenshots of more direct messages of Loader making comments on her appearance. "Y'all don't have to boost this, but I just want everyone to be aware this dude hopped into my DMs hitting on me." Loader frequently posts about his sex life and comments on women's photos. And in a disturbing August 2021 tweet, he mocked the homicide of a woman using sexual innuendo. Loader posted a photograph of Ashley Babbitt with the text, "You know, honestly, folks, I'm not even going to read what he wrote about Ashley Babbitt. But what I will tell you is it's disgusting," and he made sexual comments about Ashley Babbitt, even following her homicide. He's also been served with a temporary restraining order, and Andy posted the video. We'll show it.
Hi, Chad.
Yes.
You've been served.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Is there anything in the world more predatory than a self-described male feminist? No, there never is. I've talked about Antifa for years. They attract people like this. Lowlives, scumbags, hollow people. What do I mean by that? People who are empty shells, people who have no core. They have nothing but hate for themselves, and they're insecure. They have deep issues and deep insecurities. And so what do? Instead of trying to work to better themselves or better community, no. They lash out at others because of their own failings, because of their own problems, and because of their own issues. This person is a clear extremist, and now we find has been a predator towards women in his own area. How many times has this happened with left-wing journalists, left-wing activists, left-wing Antifa members, that they rise their profile up through these social media hate campaigns, and then we find them preying on women after women after women. And these are only the first ones that have come out. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And yet, there are still people that will go and listen to these insane political actors. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. So we're gonna pray for Chad Loader, and we're gonna pray for anyone who may have been caught in one of his traps. This kind of behavior is what destroys America and pits neighbor against neighbor. It splits up our communities, it splits up our societies. We don't want to condone this, and it is just as bad as political violence, because what are you doing at the end of the day? You're destroying people's livelihoods. You're taking away their ability to put food on the table for their families and for their children. It needs to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for continuing to support us, to support this show, to support our work, support this podcast. If you want to continue that support, go to mypillow.com. Utilize promo code POSO for up to 65% off. Make sure you get your Christmas orders in now. Christmas will be here sooner than you realize. So make sure you get your orders in now. Your family, your friends, just get it done. Just get it done, honestly. It'll be so much faster. It'll be great. Joe Biden has kowtowed to Chairman Xi. President Biden, in a virtual experience, met with Chairman Xi and kowtowed. What is kowtowing? It's a measure of formal bowing to the Emperor of China. A new emperor has arisen in the East. And folks, it's sorry to say, this is Joe Biden bowing down to him. He is acting like a vassal state. Joe Biden is an empty vassal to China. This is like the vice president of sales meeting with the CEO. Right, and from the very start, what did Xi Jinping say? He said, "It's nice to meet you, my old friend." Wow, just right under the bus. What else did they say? Number one, you hear nothing about Wuhan. You hear nothing about Taiwan. You hear nothing about Hong Kong, the freedom, the Uyghurs, their treatment. Oh, excuse me, what did he say about Taiwan? He adhered to the one China policy. You are seeing a man who is in decline and who has put a nation in decline. Watch this clip.
Good to see you, Mr. President.
非常高兴见到您，主席先生。
Next time, I hope we get to do it face to face like we used to when we travel through China.
我希望下次呢就能够像以前一样，就是我到中国去访问的时候，能够亲自的面对面的跟您交谈。
We've spent an awful lot, a lot of time talking to one another, and hope we can have a candid conversation tonight as well.
那么因为我们其实过去呢已经有很多对话的机会，我希望今天我们也能够本着这样的这个做法进行开诚布公的对话。
Maybe I should start more formally, although you and I have never been that formal with one another.
那可能呢，我应该正式一些，尽管我跟你从来都没有虚套。
Good evening to everyone here in the United States, and good morning to you, Mr. President, in Beijing.
我们在美国的同事们晚上好，习主席和中国的同事们早上好，你们在北京。
I'm happy we had found time to meet, and I look forward to a candid and forthright discussions like all the discussions we've had thus far.
那我非常高兴，我们找到这个时间进行这次的视频会晤。当然呢，我期望继续我们好像以前那样的坦诚直率的讨论。
As I've said before, it seems to me our responsibility as leaders of China and the United States to ensure that the competition between our countries does not veer into conflict, whether intended or unintended. Just simple, straightforward competition.
那么就好像以前呢，我也曾经说过的，其实呢，作为美中两国的领导人，也应该做到的，就是我们的责任呢是确保竞争不会滑向冲突，无论是有意的或者是无意的。那么也就是说，我们的竞争呢应该是坦率直接的。
President Trump viewed China as a competitor. But when you see Biden, when you see President Biden, he's acting as if China has already won the war. That's what you're seeing there. That is deference. That is kowtowing. That is the decline versus the rise. That is the lower versus the higher. And if you understand anything about optics, power dynamics, and power politics, you know. You now live in the United States of America that is subservient to the needs of the CCP. Folks, it's all the time we have today for Human Events Daily. Remember my motto to you, the motto that Binger, I guess, couldn't seem to figure out in court. Be good, be brief, be gone. Don't spend 2.5 hours wasting everybody's time. Be good, be brief, be gone, and don't be Binger. Remember, reject Bingerism in all of its forms. So be the influence agent, share this out with your normie friends, leave us your 5-star review on Apple Politics, everywhere else. But before we go, it's time for today's moment of history. There's a cool one today, actually. Today, back in 1982, was the first operational flight of the Space Shuttle Columbia. Why is this important? Because normally when I talk about history, it's about going into the past, but this shows us going forward. When I was a kid, this country had space shuttles, and then somewhere along the line, we put those space shuttles in warehouses and museums. We need to bring them back. America deserves to go to the stars. Always look forward. Ladies and gentlemen, you have my permission to lay ashore. Well, that's it for us here in Washington, D.C. Now over to the Turning Point USA headquarters, Phoenix, Arizona. Going to the couch as Turning Point Live continues. Take it away, Jack.
It's not Metroplex, it's Metroflex.
Flex.
Flex on them.
And then we got Alex Weber here. You got this book here, Fail Proof, that we're going to go over in just a little bit. We got a special segment on there, making
It's
a
mostly
positive
pictures.
Picture books, my favorite.
The only books I can really keep up with anymore. And then look at this. We got Kendall Jones is back.
I'm back. I'm here.
I heard you're a hunting expert.
That's what some say, but expert, let's use that lightly. But I always have to stay on brand, so I bring
The animal print.
Yeah, leopard
Or
print.
you're always wearing camo.
Yeah, that's true. I did have camo shoes I was going to wear one day on the show, but I decided that it didn't go with the outfit I was choosing. So.
All right, well, you guys didn't come here to learn about style. You came here to hear some stories in the daily briefing. This first one, oh, what a world we live in. So a Maryland public school is forcing 14-year-olds to take white privilege tests. So an English teacher in Montgomery County Public Schools, the largest school district in Maryland, made students take this white privilege test. They were told to give yes or no answers to 25 different statements. So these 9th grade students at Sherwood High School, right before they had to read All American Boys, so it's all about anti-racism and all that good stuff that kids really should be learning about, right, Lou?
Why not, right? I mean, how do we know when it exists? We need to have a test to know it exists. So I'm not surprised by this at all. Not in the slightest.
And then get this. These were some of the test statements about white privilege. I can go shopping alone and be sure that I won't be followed or harassed. A lot of these things generalizing that this is all about white privilege, nothing else at all. In the history I have studied, my ancestors are given a lot of attention and credit. I never feel out of place, outnumbered, unheard, feared, or hated in my clubs and activities. Instead, I feel tied in and welcomed.
It's crazy to me that this is happening. I feel like the more we push it, like with tests like this and stuff, we're teaching our kids that this is actually out there whenever it's making more of a big deal than what it actually is. In just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
Well, and I've also heard those kids, you know, like, I think we've talked about this on live before, but okay, so this test comes out now. Are those kids who get, you know, they're answering this honestly, and then they're told, you know, they have white privilege, and then they go home and they're like, Mom and Dad's like, why am I being targeted for my life or my color? And
exactly,
I don't understand.
What happens when someone who's not white tests positive for white privilege?
Oh. Exactly, we're teaching these kids
10-day
that skin color. We're teaching these kids that skin color actually matters whenever it doesn't. Like it's more than what's inside of you than white privilege. Like
going backwards.
Well, you hear stuff like this too. I can go shopping alone, be sure I won't be followed or harassed, and that's broken down under this umbrella of white privilege. Nothing to do about your gender. Obviously, like gender can be whatever you want it to be now, I guess. But I mean, when I first read that, I was like, well, I feel like that's something that women deal with.
Yeah.
So like, why is this under the umbrella?
It depends on what you're wearing. I mean, depending on like what we wear, you know, if I wear booty shorts where different parts of my body are being exposed, I might be followed and harassed. But what does that have to do with the color of my skin?
What happens if you wear leopard print?
Yeah, exactly. You might get hunted.
This other one too, I want to get to this before we go to commercial. So Australia has got a nationwide lockdown for the unvaccinated. And before I give you the details, you have something about our guy Arnold.
Because it's funny. It's not surprising Austria is this country that Arnold Schwarzenegger is from Austria. The guy that said screw your freedoms and you're a schmuck if you don't wear a mask is the same guy that's from Australia. So this is right on time. The train's not late with Austria.
Is it Austria or Australia?
Austria. Did I say Australia?
I
might have said Australia. I'm just so
nutty
used to
right now. But it's a bonkers, over-the-top, ridiculous measure for something that is not a pandemic. People are probably going to lose their mind. It is not a pandemic. And to lock people up, if you're vaccinated, this should terrify you to your soul as a human that other people are losing their lives, their freedom, their bodies. It's not going to stop.
Yeah, and in Austria, if you're 12 years or older, you have to stay locked in your home. That's what 12 or older, you can't go. Absolutely insane world that we live in, but like Arnold said, screw your freedom. Screw your freedom.
Did you practice that?
Arnold.
That was really
This
good.
is just going to lead to more like mental health issues.
Yeah.
Like think of what happened when everything was locked down.
I have to cut you off real quick because we got to go to commercial. Hey, we'll get some more of that right after this. We'll break down the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. See you in 90 seconds.
Critical race theory is the most racist thing that is being spread in popular life in America.
Critical race theory is bigoted. It is a lie.
Racism is now being taught to our kids.
Dividing kids based on race, trying to say some are oppressors and some are oppressed is absolutely unacceptable.
CRT is racist. It is abusive. It discriminates against one's color.
It's not critical race. It's racism.
Conservatives! Politics is now on TPUSA Live. It'll be here every day in case you want to hear me out along with the rest of the Turning Point USA team. Don't miss out on all the conservative.
You have to ask the question, how is the most heavily funded tribe have the poorest population?
Listen to me. My country is very because everything problem here. Don't have petroleum for bus and Cuban, for car, for life, for nothing.
And it sucks. Socialism sucks. There's no other way you can describe it.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got Lou Uridel, we got Paige Roux. We got to talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Because as of right now, as we sit on this couch, the jury is deliberating.
Yes.
They're going to decide if he's guilty or not guilty. They're going to decide basically if self-defense is still something we can stand for in our country. And that's what I think it can be dumbed down to.
Mm-hmm. It's such a turning point for, I mean, this case is going to change, I feel like, the court system, or just be a huge turning point for the court system, depending on what they decide. But I'm curious how long they're going to deliberate and what that's going to look like.
Yeah, and I think there's so many different reports coming out now. Is it going to be done by today? Is it going to be get an answer by tomorrow? I don't think it's going to be today.
No.
From everything that we've heard, and then I know Jack Posobiec has been the place to go to. Like him, Human Events, go online and check them out. Go to Human Events Daily. That's always how we kick off TPUSA Live. And then go to Jack's Twitter. He's always got up-to-date news, and he's talking to everyone. And he's giving you the backstory about what's going on with the prosecution, the defense, and what this means for us from a 2A standpoint, from a self-defense standpoint, from freedom standpoint. And he's doing a great job breaking that down. That's why we're glad that he was on the show yesterday. But yesterday was closing arguments. And before even those closing arguments were presented from the prosecution and the defense, the gun charge was dismissed. Yes. And I think that was a huge win for 2A. I definitely want to get your take on that.
Well, and we've talked about this, you know, upstairs at HQ, and I feel like there's two sides, right? So yes, it was dropped. I think that was a huge win for 2A, and yes, Rittenhouse was able to own that firearm, because my interpretation of the law and everything, and the judge talked about this as well, is that the Wisconsin law for it was that correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're under 18, you couldn't have a short barrel rifle, correct?
Yeah, so it's 16 inches, so it's...
Yes,
so
which is a standard rifle.
Yeah,
right?
16 or over, yeah.
His was 16. His was a standard Smith & Wesson M&P 15. I sell them all the time at the gun store. It's a
You're telling me that wasn't an assault rifle? That's not what AR stands
assault
for?
Weapon.
Does it stand for active shooter?
Yes. But what's interesting, and I think this is a win for 2A, because you know, the people who write this I can never say that word, legislation, you know, they don't really know about firearms, and so they're writing this to restrict our rights as Second Amendment activists. And I think this time, when it was really hard to interpret and the judge was like, no, he's able to own this firearm, I think that blew up in their face, and it was a win for us for that reason.
And then something too, watching the prosecution, the way they were presenting their case, there was a part of it I will give Binger, who Jack Posobiec will call lunchbox.
Why does he call him lunchbox?
Because basically my understanding was they would always take lunch, and then they called the judge lunch break, and then Binger became lunchbox.
That's funny.
For some reason, I don't know. We would need Jack again to break that down. But I think Binger was fairly effective, because he doesn't need to convince the American people. He just needs to convince the jurors with this. And I think if you're presenting this case that someone like Rosenbaum was just there because he needed to let off some steam and get together with these writers that are there, like, rioting righteously. That's almost what they wanted people to believe. And that he was a victim, and that he did nothing to provoke Kyle Rittenhouse whatsoever. But it seemed like it was effective from an emotional standpoint, but from a logical standpoint and a law standpoint, he was constantly contradicted himself.
Yeah, because I mean, those instances happen so fast. What he did was, what made his arguments effective was he slowed the facts down to make it look like Kyle had all this time to ponder. Look at how long he ran. Look at how long he ran. And literally it's like 15 strides of running, huffing and puffing, looking over his shoulder, who's going to get him. And it happened.
He's running away.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I don't get. Sorry to cut you.
No, that's all right. It's just like 0.7 seconds, fire some shots, and this guy's flailing at him. Rosenbaum's flying at him. You know, full speed trying to reach for the gun, and it just presented in a way where it just looks like it's indefensible.
Yeah, and then even when you had the prosecution was trying to say like, well, he put his hand like this, you see like this, and then that's how the bullet went through here, and they're trying to present this new evidence that hasn't been presented.
And it's not evidence.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not. And it's just, I think it's just a play on, you know, he was a victim. He was trying to protect himself. He wasn't trying to go for the gun.
Did you feel like the impractical jokesters were in the background?
I saw that meme.
That meme was
and they're
funny.
calling him in. That meme was so perfect because that's what I figured he's like.
Well, and what was the point of him picking up the AR? Like, how did that help? How did that help him at all?
He's
Like,
trying to make the jury feel afraid by pointing
a gun at them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand that.
We actually have that photo too. We're going to show that Binger, that prosecutor, actually like pulls out this AR-15 and clearly has no idea how to handle this.
Like the firearm safety rules, one, he was pointing it in the wrong direction or an unsafe direction, pointing it at people, and then putting his finger on the trigger, obviously. But I thought was interesting also was that in his closing statement, he said something along the lines of, if you know anything about firearms, then you know that you need to know what's aware of your surroundings, and Rittenhouse didn't. At the same time of pointing a firearm at the jury, and so close to the Alec Baldwin case,
We learned
but when
nothing from Alec
he was
Baldwin.
handed the rifle and he
Yep.
goes, someone's gonna check it for me, and then puts his finger on the trigger and points it at people. Why didn't he check it himself? If he's in a case this big, of this much density and this much media coverage, take a firearms class. I don't understand, like, spend 4 hours and learn the basic safety, learn like the CCW laws, and I feel like he would have a much better case, but yuck, it's cringy.
Yeah, and then I think the defense did a great job too, because they, like, when that AR was brought out, it's like, hey, can you double check this thing, make sure there's no bullets in there, there's nothing, double check, and then hand it to me, and then I'm not going to put my finger on the trigger, and then this is how you don't chicken wing, and
Oh my
this
gosh,
is
the
how
chicken wing.
this is how he was actually carrying it the correct way. He's actually right-handed, he's not left-handed. But going back to the emotional side of the prosecution, these are a few of the things that Binger said. He said he could have warned people. He could have fired some warning shots. Like, this whole idea, it's
back to what I just said about knowing if he's and I'm using Binger's words, but he's responsible for wherever those bullets go. So firing warning shots. In Arizona, we have Shannon's Law, where whatever must come up must come down, and that was a case because a little girl, there were shots fired in the air, and I think like a 9-year-old girl.
Warning shots are more dangerous.
Exactly, because what comes up must come down, end up killing a girl. So in Arizona, we have Shannon's Law. So the fact that he says he could have fired warning shots, but then says that he needs to be cautious of where he's responsible for wherever that bullet goes and what stops, and he was completely negligent to his surroundings, like completely contradicting himself.
Well, it seems similar to this whole defund the police movement too, where so many people are that have no idea how to police, and they're just like, well, if someone's coming after you
Shoot him
with,
in the
with,
arm.
with a knife, just shoot him in the leg.
Yes.
Shoot him. You've even heard President Biden say stuff like that. It's like, oh, I don't know why they don't just shoot him in the leg.
Just scare him.
Yeah, that kind of stuff doesn't make sense. Also, he said, Binger said Rittenhouse had no remorse, no regard for life. He walks about like a cowboy in a Western. He said that after the jump kick man tried to kick him, and he's running away, he's firing shots, like basically he ended up warning the police, telling the police what happened. But he's saying that he's just some guy that just came out there with a gun and he was just trying to shoot people. Like, if that is something that he was trying to do, I think he wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, talk about he's an active shooter. Active shooters are actually actively shooting at people. He was actively running from people.
And there are mass casualties, so I feel like they're using that for an agenda, but then it's also, I mean, I feel like that's diminishing the actual, density and tragedy of mass shootings.
Right. When you have a guy who actually goes in and shoots at every moving target, he was only shooting at targets that were actually coming at him, trying to harm him, hitting with a skateboard, jump kicking him, flailing at his gun, or with an actual gun.
So what we're talking about is self-defense.
Yeah.
We're talking about self-defense, and that evidence is clear. But there's so many people that have not looked at the evidence, they haven't looked at the videos, and they've just listened to leftist mainstream media, and they say this guy is guilty before he's proven innocent. And this is what Binger had to say in the courtroom about this.
convince you that Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take that gun and use it on the defendant, because they know you can't claim self-defense against an unarmed man like this. You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun, when you're the one creating the danger, when you're the one provoking other people. The defendant fired 4 shots at Joseph Rosenbaum and caused 5 wounds total. The first shot...
So clear lies. Like, that's just unbelievably untrue. Everything he said right there. And that's why you have someone like Jack Posobiec that was explaining that yesterday, is this is about 2A rights, and this is about your right to self-defense.
I love when you said turning point at the beginning, because it's like, when this, if this sets up and they find him guilty, that's going to basically set it up where anytime people are rioting or looting and you try to defend yourself, it's going to be looked at as now it's murder, because these are protesters, and it's already been set a precedent, and we can't set that kind of precedent. If people are out actively causing violence, setting fires, attacking you with guns in their tucked in behind their back, in their hands, shooting you.
Child predators who just got released, who are outside rioting now, destroying black businesses, and these are 3 white men. So I don't understand why this is a race issue on this case. This 17-year-old at the time was protecting and defending himself because he has the Second Amendment right to do so.
But they're protecting rioters. That's what they've been doing.
That's what it is. They think these people have, it's like they said, it's like public health crisis the whole time. Like, you have to stay inside if you're protesting masks, but if you're protesting this, it's actually healthy to do it. So it's always been a protection for this.
Do it.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they also tried using this idea of just like, well, Rittenhouse, nobody asked you to protect their small business. Like, we talked to the car dealership. Nobody asked you there. Let's just look at it out of the goodness of his heart. That he went down there, like, so many people can say, like, should he have been there as a 17-year-old?
And the night before, they said the gas station that got blown up with the fire. So they went down there because of those actions the night before. All those businesses that were burned and destroyed, they came out there in mass. Hey, we have to help save this community. That's what the reaction was. It wasn't that they showed up one day out of the blue.
Yeah. And then also, too, something we want to touch on. So some of the news that came out today, so obviously the jury is still deliberating, but we have Mark McCloskey. A lot of people remember them, the McCloskeys outside. They were trying to protect their own home. This is what he had to say. If you defund the police and the government is not there to protect the citizens, citizens have to protect themselves.
Correct.
So, and then that's exactly how Kyle Rittenhouse
And
explained
they were letting the rioters do their thing. So what are citizens going to do?
And then something I know the prosecution was trying to push on, and then even leftist mainstream media is saying, like, well, he clearly lied. He lied about being an EMT. He's not actually a medical professional, but he's not on the stand for lying.
Right.
No, he's on the stand for murder, and this is not a breakdown of should he have killed these people. It's like, no, are these killings justified? That is what the jury has to.
And it's not
decide.
a crime to have a gun and to protect yourself and walk around with it there.
Right.
It's not a crime. So people say, well, he brought a gun. That's not a crime.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's why the gun charge got thrown out right away before those closing arguments. So if that has anything to say about where we're at as a country, luckily we have Judge Schroeder's that's saying, hey, we're tossing this out. We're protecting your Second Amendment rights.
I'm really impressed with him. I would say, and I know like some people are saying that he's biased in support of Rittenhouse, and I think maybe like there are some things where I'm like, okay, like he's really favoring Rittenhouse. I'm all about it, of course, but just to kind of play devil's advocate. But I'm also curious how the jury's going to deliberate with all the media coverage, and is this are they going to make a decision that's going to affect Rittenhouse's life because of the possibility of more riots and media outrage and threats to the jury's family?
And that's something I know we're going to talk about as we wrap up this segment and then going into the next one too. But they're expecting some unrest, and actually we're going to cover that more in this next segment. But something that's interesting about this case here is how the jury was selected. So right now we told you that the jury is deliberating right now. It's like, well, how were those 8 jurors selected? And I know watching it earlier today, you definitely need to make sure you go online and look at some of the videos and photos, and how they had the jurors selected is they almost put in this like bingo ball wheel thing. It was like just like an old box, and they put the names of the jurors
It's like a lottery.
I'm literally thinking like a G8, and seeing who's sitting in G8.
I have a legal background. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah,
ever in my life.
It was wild, and that's what a lot of people I know have been watching Raquetta Law. That's great on YouTube. You have a bunch of lawyers and attorneys that have been in there, and they're like, we've never seen this. And what he did was he just picked out 8 different names. Kyle Rittenhouse did. Kyle Rittenhouse picked out these 8 names, and then those are the jurors. So those are the people that are deliberating. So that it was shocking to a lot of people. I don't know. I'd love for someone else to like really break that down. But I do need to cut you off. We're gonna. I know there's so much to talk about with this Kyle Rittenhouse trial, but we're gonna tell you a little bit more about the unrest and what the governor's doing out there. Also, the leftist media's response to before the trial, and even what's going on right now. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
This has all happened before. The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona.
A Metro Flex gym in Oceanside, California. Let's go.
Every time he says flex, I'm gonna flex.
And then Lou, you actually got a law background.
Yeah. Went to the DePaul School of Law.
So we're talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse case. We also got Paige Roux here, just 2A experts. So everything about guns we've heard about in this trial.
Guns and law.
Paige has been the person to go to there. I know you cover that extensively on Reloaded, that you're going to get to watch right after we're done with this couch show, and then after you got Breakaway with me.
Best day.
We were just talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Obviously today the jurors are deliberating, and before we get into, actually Charlie Kirk just had a great tweet about what's going on there and the jury standpoint. But before we went to break, we were talking about the unrest that Kenosha is really bracing for. They're also bracing for riots. So what happened was, we have a video we're going to show you in a second, but the Wisconsin National Guard, they're staging up to 500 troops close to the area, but not too close. So that's what is interesting about this situation. For some reason,
not to like pre-trigger people, or
yeah, and it sounds like basically the way they're being set up is if they needed to be called in, would they get there in time? That's what a lot of people are reports that we're seeing, because you'd have to brace for this, and it seems similar to what happened in the Derek Chauvin trial, where I think you had a lot of people that were terrified that there was going to be unrest and there was going to be riots again. So I don't know why you'd expect anything less here in Kenosha, especially how the Governor Evers just allowed people to run rampant in the streets, and which led to this Kyle Rittenhouse situation. But we have a video now of those National Guard.
Roughly 500 Wisconsin National Guard troops standing by. Governor Tony Evers activated them in case they're needed in Kenosha, but they wait in Waukesha County. They won't be deploying to Kenosha until and unless the local police there say they need them, a city that saw destruction in 2020.
So you heard, so that was brought to you by Fox 6, and you can hear them say like, well, they're not in Kenosha. So Evers, they're wondering like, why does Governor Evers have it set up like this? So it's saying that even that tweet from Fox 6 saying, we found them 60 miles away from Kenosha, which means it would be likely to take up to an hour and a half to get there if local police call them.
So is this, there's two thoughts for me. Is this so that they are prepared for possibility, and that's a spot where they're not triggering, you know, oh shoot, like stuff's gonna go down. They're trying to like still, I don't know, keep the city a little bit sane unless they're needed. Or is it a political move where it, you know, depending on the verdict, riots start happening and they don't actually show up, or they're like, we're too far away to get there, we'll be there when we can, kind of thing.
Well, I don't know why you would expect Governor Evers to actually take care of the situation like he should. He didn't keep Kenosha safe during the race riots of last year, and which led to this Kyle Rittenhouse trial in the first place. And then I don't know why you'd expect him to keep Kenosha safe now, because I think it's totally a political move.
That's what
it's like, well, you know, I called 500. Well, it's like, well, they're not
60 miles away.
Yeah. That's just like saying like, oh, well, you know, I bought a gun, but I kept it in my car, but someone got it to my house. You know, I had a gun, but it just unfortunately it was in my car.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's this whole political move. That's what I think it is. But I know Jack, like once again too, like Jack Posobiec's been the guy to go to with everything Kyle Rittenhouse, and he even was talking about you should brace for unrest. You should brace for riots, and if this doesn't go their way, the leftist way, or the popular way, which has made Kyle Rittenhouse out to be guilty before proven innocent, it's not going to go well. But I know Charlie Kirk had this tweet out just about 15 minutes ago. He said Kyle Rittenhouse's future is now being held hostage by BLM Inc. Sources indicate 2 jurors now citing direct threats as potentially impacting their decision on Kyle. Where is the Department of Justice too busy spying on parents, indicting Bannon, and investigating James O'Keefe?
Those jurors need to be off the jury right now.
That's why
they're already going to base their opinion on something other than reasonable doubt, and that your threats should not be a part of your deliberation. They're nowhere in those instructions that say, hey, consider what the threat's going to be to you.
Yep.
And I think it's insane that there's even going to be any kind of a riots or anything like that going on, considering we're talking about someone's right to defend themselves. This extends to anybody. If you're black or white, if you're defending your life, you should be able to defend yourself.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be an issue of what the person's color is. And the whole thing is, they're claiming this guy's a white supremacist, Kyle Rittenhouse, who shot white people.
But there's millions of people that think he shot black people.
Oh, all
because
over.
it was BLM riots, and they think because there was unrest in Kenosha that he shot black people. Now that's been tweeted out. That I really believe this. Whether hundreds of thousands or millions of people actually believe it, like the numbers I think are irrelevant. There's still enough people that think that he shot black people, and or people that people that are white that align with BLM Inc. And that's where people start to play this race card. But something too, the judge is being threatened. So Judge Schroeder, he actually was saying that one email sent to him on Wednesday read, "Wow, way to make a white skinhead hothead to be judged. No wonder they burned down your city." Another one said, addressed Your Honor, "I didn't know that under your black robes of justice you wear a white robe of the Klan. There's no way a fair trial can be heard under your supervision, better yet, resign." That's what people are turning this whole thing into. It's just like, hey, Kyle Rittenhouse, he's guilty before proven innocent. He's a white supremacist. You heard that from MSNBC anchors, contributors. You heard that from Joy Reid. We have a breakdown of what some of those look like
Christmas is right around the corner, and they're going to try to get some early Christmas shopping done. They might be disappointed, though, because with the supply chain issues, the shelves might be empty.
Yeah,
like, where are you going with this?
Oh man. And then too, just right before we get to this whole aspect of like prosecutors talking about like gun safety, a few of the things that MSNBC contributor Jason Johnson, he compared Rittenhouse to a school shooter, declared him the enemy. Analyst John Heelman said he was arguably a domestic terrorist, on and on and on. But we do have that photo of Banger with the gun, and we're going to show you right now. And I know this is triggering here. So this is how he's holding a gun. Paige, this is your time. This is you. You're the gun girl. Because look at this here. Just the way he's chicken winging. He's got his finger on the trigger, and explain what's happening.
My hands are getting sweaty right now. My heart is racing. So, where do you start? First of all, his finger's on the trigger. So, and this was my take. Like, why, if you're in a trial that is of this like density and this much media coverage. Take a freaking gun safety class. Like, just know kind of what the laws are. So if you're gonna pick up that rifle, which didn't help his closing statements, I think it just buried him, but putting your finger on the trigger, pointing it in the direction of the entire tree, I don't know why someone did not stop him when that happened. Yes, his chicken wing was disgusting. That's a completely different topic. But then, you know, even close to, like we just talked about, close to the Alec Baldwin situation where he goes in pre-recorded, like on, you know, in his statement, oh, I'm making sure that I think the sheriff or something was checking it to make sure it was safe, that it was clear, right? Bolt is forward, so how do you know if there's a round in the chamber, right? So the bolt isn't locked back, you can't see, the gun could definitely be loaded, and his finger is on the trigger, and he's not really paying attention to his surroundings. He's talking and trying to make his point. And
the only thing that won on that were the memes.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that won on that.
That was the Impractical Jokers one you were talking about.
Yeah, the only thing that won on that was the meme. There's so many of them.
Now pick up the gun, chicken wing, and put your finger on the trigger.
And they're just like laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something like that. I'm sure you and then we're gonna get Kendall Jones back in this next segment. How like that must just make you unbelievably angry.
And I think something that we need to take away from this is, you know, I love everyone who exercises their Second Amendment. It's our right to do so. Carrying a firearm, and this is something that I teach in all my classes. I'm a firearms instructor full time, so I teach people, you know, if you need to use this, but I also talk about, are you willing to? And that's a question that people don't think about because they don't think about the aftermath. And I think that's a very eye-opening thing for us to all experience through Rittenhouse right now. I mean, he's 18 years old and he's dealing with all of this, you know, this trial and everything and all this backlash and media coverage. And it's just, regardless on if he, you know, if he was justified or not, like the aftermath of pulling the trigger and taking someone's life, as a firearm owner, you need to think about that.
And from everything that we've seen, I know, and everything that we've been covering on this show, it seems like self-defense is strong, and that argument is very strong. But coming up next, we're going to talk about positive change. See you soon.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
Conservatives! Politics is now on TPUSA Live. It'll be here every day in case you want to hear me out along with the rest of the Turning Point USA team. Don't miss out on all the conservative.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got these three incredible people here because we need to talk about something positive. So often we get so stuck in this world of just negativity, and there's some heavy news coming out. We've been covering the Kyle Rittenhouse trial extensively on this show. I know everyone that probably watches this show too, you've been keeping up with it. And it seems like right now too, with all the vaccine mandates and people having to choose the jab or their job, and you're
which gender you want to be.
Yeah, and it's
tough
just
one.
Yeah, and everybody.
Tough one, hard choice there.
And over some of these, you know, arguments or discussions, or sometimes they aren't even arguments or discussions, you're just pushed away. from family, friends. There's so much negativity in the world, but I think something that all three of you are doing is bringing something positive into the world. And I think especially with your new book, Fail Proof, Becoming the Unstoppable You. Alex, can you talk a little bit more about how you're trying to create a positive change in the world with your book and everything you're doing across the country?
I appreciate that, and truly so inspired by all three of you. And,
there we go.
Vanna White.
You're the Vanna White over here. Look at this.
Looks so small in his hands. We had talked about positivity before this, and I really think it is a choice. Sometimes situations are tough, they are difficult, they are scary, they are negative, but I think one thing that we all have is the ability to look at it and say, all right, let's make this better. And that's something that is each person's choice. And something big in the book is what I call brave honesty. And that is something that can be tough, but bravery comes in a lot of forms, and especially now, I believe it's something that we all need to look at a situation and just honestly be brave and say, this isn't okay. So what can we do to make it better? Even if that is scary or tough. And that's really what I feel being positive is, and especially embracing sides of ourselves that maybe aren't there, or maybe someone told us that we're not creative or we're not smart or we can't be a bodybuilder, and then we still embrace it and go and do it. That's what fires me up.
And then I know too, we just showed a still of your book. I think hopefully we can bring that back up too, because that just came out November 2nd, and there it is. Look at that. Look at the double finger guns there.
The cover.
I love it.
But I think we talked about it earlier before the show. Like, we're all dealt cards that we have to live with. Like, and sometimes those aren't the best cards that you're dealt, but you have to live with it. And you can't just live in fear and just live with like, oh, what if something else could have happened? This could have made my life so much better. Well, it didn't. So you know what? Live with what you're dealt and make the best out of it and turn those negatives into positives. So I'm excited to read it. I haven't read it, but I'm guessing that's what it's about.
But when you learn the most, I think we could all agree on this, is when you fail. Like too often we are just coddling people and each other, and maybe even ourselves are just like, well, I don't want to fail. I want to always be successful. But how do you know how to be successful and be the best you if you don't know?
Without failures. You have to fail in order to come back up and make something of it and learn from those mistakes.
Because in this book too, you're not saying, hey, don't fail. Fail proof is not just, hey, don't ever fail again. It's like, no, this is the right way to fail.
That's exactly it. I mean, my core belief is a fail becomes a failure when you stop. If you keep going, then a fail is failing, which is forward. That's progress. You're growing. And I really think we're, especially now, 2021, social media, our reputations, everyone's so cautious that no one wants to put themselves out there and maybe be ugly, maybe be gross, maybe suck, maybe be embarrassed. And that is really what leads to all the great things in life.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's so great that you're pushing people to this. Like, get out of your comfort zone. Like, that's where you learn the most, is when you fail, you get out of your comfort zone. Because I think one of the most dangerous places you can be is complacency.
Yes.
If you're going to be complacent and feel like, oh, there's nothing more I could do, probably nothing less. I'm probably good, just kind of hovering here, just kind of floating.
Just coasting through life.
It's just, there's always something more to do. So more positive change you make, more discussions, like way to better yourself every single day.
100%. You can always grow. You can grow every single day, no matter how much you learn. Like, there's always room for it.
Absolutely.
And then we got to talk about Metro Flex.
Metro
Flex. Now we got to flex. Let's go. It's something
flexing on them.
But you've made a positive change in California. Like, it's an insane place to be. We've covered that on the show so much, and it's a place I know I moved from, and a lot of people have moved from. But you said, hey, I'm pushing back against vaccine mandates, mask mandates. I am not going to bow down to this woke mob or this idea of health, what's best for you, because there's too many people that are told to stay home and protect others and don't work out, don't go to your gym anymore. But you pushed against that. Why?
Look, the simple thing is, people that are telling us to do the healthy choices aren't even drinking the requisite amount of water to stay hydrated during the day. So
speaking of water,
everyone drink their water. Take a drink water.
Water break.
But yeah, we're talking about the fact that they ignore obesity, which is over 78% of the cases that have gone in the hospital are from people who are or choking. Choking may be an issue as well.
We're good. Continue.
Yeah, but so from a health standpoint, they closed the gym, and that's where I think there was no vaccine, and that was the vaccine to stay healthy. And now we're seeing that that is the case. Staying healthy, staying active, in shape was the case for it. So it started off that, and then it just started flowing into standing up against their attacks on our free speech, standing up for their attacks on what I feel pro-life. And I'm very strong-minded when it comes to a lot of those conservative values.
Did you get a lot of pushback for opening up?
Yeah, so I've had news articles tacked to my door of my house with like murderer written below it.
My goodness.
Casual.
I had death threats. I tried to get my CCW permit, because if you have enough death threats, you can do it. And they said, well, these don't really. You've never had anyone actually attempt on your life. I mean, so wait, I have to have someone try to kill me to actually. What about these? I'll put the murderer thing on my door at my house where I live.
That's ridiculous. I had a similar instance whenever the media thing happened with me. Someone said, like, I'm going to come kill you with an ice pick and blah, blah, blah. And they said, we can't do anything unless someone of that description comes up and they have an ice pick on them. I'm like, so great, we can't do anything until I'm dead?
I can't even carry a gun.
Awesome.
I can't even get a gun to carry permit to protect myself.
That's ridiculous.
And then you actually spoke in front of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors as well. We
multiple
got a video we want to show you. Let's check this out.
You nor our elected officials, minus Jim Desmond, have ever mentioned the effectiveness of maintaining healthy weight, exercise, proper nutrition, vitamin supplementation. Not a peep. We are talking about health? We talking about health? Instead, we get wear a mask, stay home, close your business, and take this shot, none of which boosts your immune system. Don't talk to me about personal responsibility until every employer is held responsible for injury resulting from this shot when they require it, or big pharma companies are held liable. I'm gonna make this real simple for y'all. I will never, and I mean ever, submit to any request or requirement to wear masks or vaccine mandates. I will never submit to rules that segregate or dismantle people and put them against each other. Thank you.
Look at
I'm with
you.
I'm with those
Get
people too. Metro flexing on them.
Yeah.
Flexing on them.
Yeah.
But you can see the support you had in that room too, like how riled up people got. They're like, thank God someone's finally speaking up.
That was the first time I went down to the Board of Supervisors. So everyone in the community knew who I was already. So I went down there and I addressed it. I basically was addressing the fact that they don't care about our health. None of these health agencies, the health professionals, they don't care about our health. And they're talking about accountability, like, well, you're not being a decent human being if you don't get this vaccine. At the same time, they're not having any accountability on these big pharma companies who, they're the only ones that seem to be immune. And then the employers are mandating it, and the employers don't have to. So I brought those points up, and it's like, how are you trying to come at us when we're just trying to make a choice and trying to make us feel bad? And I felt this whole thing has always been about a freedom of choice for me. I've never had any animosity to people that want to get a shot or people that want to wear a mask. Go do you. Let me do me.
You have the freedom to
This
decide.
is America.
With all those. That is America. You have the freedom to decide. If someone comes into your gym and they're vaccinated or they want to wear a mask, you're just like, all right.
Yeah.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Glad you're working out. Like do what you want to do.
Hey, $29.99 a month, baby. You're in too.
No, my thing is, if they're so worried about health, why aren't they banning McDonald's? They're banning gyms where you can actually get healthy, but they're fine with Big Macs.
Big Macs were open. Those places were open during the pandemic.
Well, that's where I think it was such a shame too. It's like some people were told they were essential, other people were told not essential, and then small businesses too. And then even just covering the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, like a lot of people forget how much damage was done to Kenosha in that place, and it was a lot of them were small businesses, and they were told that they were non-essential for a long time, and then all they went through just to get their businesses going and just try to get sales up and stay afloat, and then it just gets burned down. And then you have people that say like, well, they probably have insurance. That's why I think it's so sad that people are forgetting what happened in Kenosha, and they're so focused on this one 17-year-old kid at the time.
Yeah. And then I think what's so amazing of what Lou did is the American dream is in small businesses, and both my parents are small business owners. Like I've gotten to know all of you. That's where we came from, and I think it's so admirable what Lou said, which is finally when they said you have to shut your doors, he was like, no, the community needs this, and people need this, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the statistics on how many lives one-way stickers on supermarket floors saved.
Yeah. My favorite ones were the ones that were like vertically 6 foot, but like
you can stand right next to
horizontally
someone.
like 1 foot. Like
it doesn't go sideways.
It doesn't go sideways,
Straight
but
back
we
and
gotta
forth.
go forward and backwards.
Face that way. I'm getting my Oreos.
Yeah.
Don't stand up. No one stand up.
The altitude at restaurants. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to see. Yeah.
But someone else that's making a positive change, just Kendall Jones. So you have the 5th annual,
Kendall Jones Christmas Angel Auction.
Christmas Angel Auction.
Yes.
That's what we got.
So
Break that
Christmas
down.
Angel Auction, fundraiser, kind of the same thing. But yes, this is the 5th annual of me actually doing it on the level that I'm doing it now. So I host a big fundraiser every year to raise money to buy Christmas for kids in need. So me and my mom, for the most part, just go out and we get these lists of kids of the clothes that they need and the sizes and shoes and the toys that they want, and we go out and literally customize and buy kids Christmas gifts and Christmas, basically their entire Christmas. And I work with different local organizations for the most part. I also like branch out, and I know some people that like need help, or I'll get inquiries saying like, hey, this is this family situation. And so I do as much vetting as I can on it, but the local organizations do the vetting, and I know that these kids like actually need help. So I do a big fundraiser every year, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And so I'm hoping to buy for over 100 angels this year.
And then also Charlie Kirk and President Trump have helped out a little bit, right?
Not President Trump, Donald Trump Jr.
Donald Trump Jr., excuse me, Donald Trump Jr.
Just as cool, right? So my auction, I get like organizations and brands and people to donate all of these items, and then I host a big online online auction, and people can go and bid, kind of like eBay, but it's just like my items. And yeah, Donald Trump Jr. donated 2 signed books.
Oh, I love it.
So if you want to get your someone in your family, one of your friends, an autographed book by Donald Trump Jr., it's on my auction.
I may have to auction that. I'm jealous.
The auction ends November 28th, but Charlie Kirk also donated 2 books and a Turning Point USA merch bundle. So. Ooh. If you want some of that, go ahead and check it out. But there's other ways to get involved too. Obviously, you can donate online, donate through Venmo, and then I also have an Amazon wish list of just a bunch of different items that kids are wanting, and you can go online and buy it and send it directly to me, and I put it in their like little present bundle thing and deliver it.
Once again, what's that website again people can go to donate, or either just...
I would go to my website, thekendalljones.com, and all of the information is on there, or follow me on social media. I've been posting about it nonstop. So there's a landing page that you can go to, and it'll give you all of the details.
And I think it's so important too, because we have the holidays coming up. We got Thanksgiving, which is right around the corner. I can't believe how fast this year has gone. But the holidays, a lot of us were like hanging out with our families, and it can be extremely positive. And I think that mindset you brought up too, Alex, like you can have a lot of really tough political conversations. You can have a lot of real like divisive conversations, but I think there's a way we can have some positive change. Start donating to that, or
and
just
do
be a
it
part of the
early,
auction.
because you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and just make an assumption, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm gonna guess none of y'all have started your Christmas shopping in general.
That's factual. I usually do that about a week or 2 before.
So it's factual. My assumption was right. But the shelves this year at stores are absolutely insane. I normally start shopping for this fundraiser at the end of November, and I started early this year because the supply chain is insane. I go to stores and you can't find any of the right sizes. All of the toys are picked over. So like, and then I'll get on like Amazon or like Walmart or try to buy these toys, and they're like, oh, it'll get there in January. I'm like, well, that's a little late there, bud. So if you haven't started Christmas shopping, I would go ahead and start it now, because this supply chain issue is definite. And I didn't even know until I started shopping for these angels. I was like, wow, like this is not what it normally is, because this is the 5th year that I've done it, and it's been pretty tough this year.
Well, I'm so thankful for you three. Everything you're doing to create a positive change in the world and in your community, it's inspiring. Get that book and make sure that you donate, and make sure you go to Metroflex. I'll see you guys in 3 minutes.
In these United States of America, this great country of ours, we American Indians, we can be anything we want to be, except American Indians.
A lot of the soldiers were very aggressive, so the women did get raped.
What we call huelte. Huelte means a place of suffering, dying, starvation, nothing good. Just like the Nazi concentration camps.
I didn't realize how corrupt things were. I didn't realize what kind of environment we were living in.
We had no running water, we had no
power.
They de-incentivize people from, opportunity. That's why our suicide rate has climbed up astronomical rates.
I moved from the poorest county in America, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, to the richest area in the country, the Navajo Indian Reservation. There is no difference. The poorest and richest reservations in our nation suffer from identical problems. This is not anything new. This is an everyday occurrence in all tribal governments.
So my life and my tale and my truth has been to fight socialism. And I'm hoping that I can wake up as many Navajos as I can to tell them that you can do this. Yeah, even if I have to fight you to save you. And I think that's what I'm also projecting to my people. Even though they are so harsh on social media and they completely hammer at me, I tell them, I'll be here even if I have to fight you to save you.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got time for one last thing. We got these full couches over here. I'm glad that the two hosts of the best weekly shows out there are sitting on this couch.
I feel like it's every Tuesday they make sure that you and I are sitting next to each other because it's the best day.
Yeah, sorry to Isabel, Morgan,
We
Alex,
still love you,
everybody
but
else. Like, we love you,
guns.
but people don't love you as much as they love us. It's the truth, right? Hey, one last thing. We got everybody here. We got Kendall, Alex, Lou, Paige. We go over some weird stuff on this show, Kendall.
Maybe I'll actually chime in on today's one last thing.
Yeah, please chime in on this. I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say because assistant professor at Old Dominion University, Alan Walker, the author of the book, A Long Dark Shadow, Minor Attracted People and Their Pursuit of Dignity. This person is trying to destigmatize pedophilia. This is what Professor Walker had to say. The book challenges the widespread assumptions that persons who are preferentially attracted to, I can't believe we have to even talk about stuff like this. This is insane. Attracted to minors, often referred to as pedophiles, and looks at the lives of non-offending minor attracted persons, a term used to describe the group because it is less stigmatizing than a word like pedophile. I want to be extremely clear that child sexual abuse is never okay. I'm glad you covered that.
Glad we agree there.
Yeah, thank you. But having an attraction to minors, as long as it isn't acted on, doesn't mean that that person who has those attractions is doing something wrong.
I'm sorry.
So, there is little, so obviously, from a Christian standpoint, we live in a sinful world. We are a fallen world. And we're all gonna have temptations, but to try to destigmatize something like pedophilia, you can't stand up for
I feel like there's so many other things that we need to focus on in the world rather than making pedophiles feel
safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
I don't want them to feel safe. Really, I mean, why should they? I feel like I need to take a shower just after hearing that. You know,
it's a fight that doesn't need to be fought, and they don't get some cute nickname maps. No, you're a pedophile. You don't. We're not giving them.
And you
some
deserve
name
to like something deserves to happen to you that I probably can't say on here, but like they deserve a special kind of treatment elsewhere. They're horrific, absolutely horrific. And what I'm curious about is it says that it's not wrong if it's not acted on, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? Like, can you watch child porn? Or is that not acting on it?
Well, I'm sure that's like moving the goalposts too, where it's like, you know, this is justified, or this is the compromise you can make, and it's disgusting. That's all it is. This kind of stuff should never be stood up for. And then to even have Professor Walker say they would do anything to change.
We'll do something.
Like, how about change?
Yeah.
How about
change?
Literally,
change?
that's
How about we go get some professional help, and because something is not right in your mind.
well, that's the world we live in now, though. It's just like, oh, you know, I feel this way. You know, I am a.
Well, maybe
I'm
your
a man in a
feelings
woman's
aren't
body.
always
Like,
right. Like,
yeah, but that's how they're coddling people. That's what they're trying to say. It's just like maps. Yeah, that just goes to show how prevalent this is and how wrong it is in our society that there's actually, they're broken down to maps. There's an acronym for this. Like, I don't know if they have a Facebook group or something. Hopefully that gets shut down.
Feelings just kind of spread like a virus into our lives as their feelings. Like, these are our feelings, so now they're your feelings too.
You have to feel that
you
way
have
too,
to feel this
unless
way.
you're wrong.
Yeah.
Someone needs to check Alan Walker's phone and computer and do
yeah,
make sure.
all the things. Like I don't even want to know what my face looks like right now because I feel like I have been just making a disgusting face this whole time. Like, there's no words to even describe how that's okay at all. Like, I don't understand what this guy is even trying to do. Like,
and like this is going to be the hill you're going to die on. This right
That.
here. Like, we just
but
finished.
let's think of his thought process. Did he just wake up one day and be like, you know what? This is the book I'm gonna write. This is the change I want to make in this world. It's like,
what's his background?
Yeah, like this is gonna be a New York Times bestseller. We're going to make pedophilia okay.
Who published the book is what
ew.
I want to know.
Yeah.
Who's the publisher?
I don't think it's HarperCollins.
It's probably not a Christian book publisher. We're just gonna throw that one out there.
Because, I mean, we just finished up a segment about like positive change. Right. All three of you here, what you're doing, and even just writing a book, how you can just be the better you.
Right. Well, I think you bring
Is
up
that the better him?
Right. No.
What was before that?
You all bring up such a good point of like, okay, if you, whatever temptations or feelings you have, but you can do something about that.
Yeah.
And
Get
not try
help.
to justify it. Yeah.
Get help. Like, there's people out there, like, don't try to make it okay because it's not okay and it's never gonna be okay. Like, you're looking at kids in that sense, like, it just like weirds me out even trying to think someone thinks like that.
Yeah, but once again, really appreciate you guys being here. Kendall, Alex, Lou, Paige. We wrote a bunch about Kyle Rittenhouse on the live feed. Go to tpusa.com/live feed. AmericaFest is coming up. tpusa.com/AmericaFest. Promo code John for 25% off. Coming up next, Reloaded and Breakaway. See you guys tomorrow.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
Have you ever thought about what to look for in your next firearms instructor? Like, what qualifies you to teach me how to use this tool? Well, I'm covering key points on how to vet your next potential firearms instructor, and on the range, I'm gonna take you through a full range sesh because boy, do I need to start training again. Lock and load, this episode's a big one. I'm Paige Roux, and this is Reloaded. All right, so what qualifies you to be an instructor? This is important to ask if you're personally trying to become one or if you're trying to find a reputable instructor in your area. You want a trusted hairstylist or car detailer, right? Well, you should want a good instructor too. Part of my experience as a training coordinator for an indoor shooting range includes being the point of contact for outside instructors to host classes with us. And let me tell you, I've seen some amazing instructors and some whose students I've literally had to comfort in the bathroom because the instructor was simply not doing their job. All these relationships and experiences have helped me create a helpful list of questions to ask when it comes to instructors. The first one is the elephant in the room: credentials. Some popular places to get training certificates are the NRA and the USCCA. Both are organizations where anyone can sign up and take their instructor certification course. Normally it's a few-day course where you do a shooting qualification and a lot of classroom time learning how to be a professional instructor. But once you pass the test, you get a little card that says you're a certified instructor. The perks about these two is that they offer instructor insurance, which we'll talk about in a few. Other credentials could include accomplishments or training that you had even when you were in the military or in law enforcement. And I know instructors who are trained to teach law enforcement agencies, and they have a lot of boxes to check in order to be qualified to do what they do. But today we're just going to discuss credentials needed to teach civilians like me. So, what qualifies you to be a firearms instructor? Fact: there's actually no official certification or national test to become a firearms instructor for a civilian. It's not like becoming a real estate agent where you need training and have to pass a state exam in order to begin working. But don't worry, a lot of the best instructors in the country who even run their own training groups are not NRA or USCCA certified instructors. There are other important aspects that make them incredibly reputable. Now, with that being said, if you want to become an instructor and you have little training under your belt, going through the NRA or USCCA instructor training could be a great start to get your feet wet in the instructor world. Another good thing about training like this is that once completed, you'll gain access to tons of tools and course outlines from the organization that could help you progress on the road to becoming an instructor. Also, I think if you want the instructor insurance, you have to be a certified instructor through that specific organization. But just from my experience working in the industry, a major red flag to me is if an instructor won't stop talking about their credentials. It's credentials this and credentials that, credentials this. If they're confident and good at what they do, they won't spend half your class telling you what they're qualified in. Ultimately, you just gotta let the credibility speak for itself. Another question to ask is, how long have they been instructing? And I mean actively instructing. Ask how many lessons or classes they do per year or per week. Do they have an Instagram or website? Look them up. Like I said, you'll want to look into a hairstylist or even a doctor before you make an appointment, and you're definitely going to want to overanalyze someone's dating profile before you say yes to that date, huh? An instructor is another important relationship in your life. You want him or her to have positive impact on you. So do your homework. Don't just know how long they've been actively instructing, but figure out what they specialize in. Rest assured, there are many instructors out there who run training groups and are all around badasses in almost every avenue of guns. I personally take classes from them to learn, but as an instructor, I found my niche in working with brand new shooters. I love being part of their journey from hesitance to fear to just knowledge and overall confidence. And I love seeing the looks on their faces when a light bulb goes off. It just, honestly, it makes my day every single lesson when I see that. So find an instructor who wants to see that light bulb go off in you as you're learning. Another important thing to ask is, do they have insurance? For example, when outside instructors want to run a range at our shooting range for one of their classes, we require them to have a yummy amount of insurance. And it's about $2 million in instructor insurance for our range, and that's just to cover us. Some other questions to think about is, where is the class held? Could this be an indoor or outdoor shooting range or an easily accessible outdoor spot that allows public shooting? But what you don't want is to meet an instructor in a parking lot or something for the classroom portion because they didn't have the right documentation or preparedness to reserve a professional setting to train you. Don't be that instructor. Do you have an idea of what they're going to teach you? Is it a curriculum that you're signing up for, or is it a private lesson? Biggest thing is, do they listen and are they patient? Meaning, are they willing to adapt to your learning style, or are they just rigid and expect you as a student to adapt to them? Remember the students I had to comfort in the bathroom? Don't be that instructor either. And last but not least, if it's you who wants to become an instructor as a hobby or full-time, my advice is to take as many training classes as possible. Learn from other instructors' teaching styles and decide on what you like and dislike about that class. If you were an instructor, ask yourself, what would you change? Be sure to take notes and start playing around with the curriculum. It doesn't have to be a professional binded document. It just has to be kind of like a vision and a plan to help you. Then start teaching your friends and family members on just a one-on-one setting. This is where you're gonna work out all the kinks and figure out safety and what to plan for when implementing in your class. So my journey a little bit, I've talked about it before, but I started taking classes at a really young age. And around when I was 16 to 18 years old, I was working at the shooting range and I was a range safety officer, RSO. So I got to see instructors teach classes, and I also got to kind of see what I liked and disliked about their teaching style. Then on top of that, I went on to the NRA training and I got qualified and started looking at all of their courses and outlines, started studying them, and then I started with one-on-one private lessons for about 6 or 7 months. Then I felt more comfortable, jumped up to teaching classes. I started with 6 students, and now 4 or 5 years later of full-time instructing, I'm now teaching instructors on how to teach, and now I'm teaching groups of 24 to even 75 people. So just start. So stay tuned to find out what I'll be learning today, coming up on Reloaded. As a firearms instructor, I'm always on the range, but recently I realized that I haven't been doing a lot of shooting myself, and there's absolutely no excuse for that. So I'm gonna show you one of my training days on the range. Let's go. All right, I'll be honest, it's been a hot minute since I've had a full training day. While I always want to help and instruct others, I also need to make time for my own training. So today I'm going to do a little training sesh with you, and you can see some things that I work on with my handgun. So when I'm looking for range inspiration for myself or students, I'll normally look back at a few things like drills I've done while taking classes, drills other shooters have done, popular things on Instagram, or even police department qualifications, which are actually pretty fun if you're not the one qualifying. So since I need to get back in the groove of things, I'm gonna use a target as a benchmark to see where I'm at with my skills and then seeing what I need to work on. So this is actually one of my favorite targets. It's an essentials shooting target from 3-Factor Tactical. I like it because this one target makes you focus on a lot of fundamentals, including speed, distance, right and left-handed, and also transition. So everything, I love it. I was ordering this online one night and I saw that they had an essentials training guide which pairs with a bunch of their targets and acts as kind of like your own training system. It tells you what to focus on with each target and how to score it, and then you can write the date and score in the book to track your progress. So it reminded me of those good habit forming or budget books that you can get from the craft store, and when I saw it I was like, I can write in this with my pink gel pens. I love it, and I love a good guidebook, so of course I bought it. This target is also helpful because it doesn't matter what your skill level is. All right, are you ready? Let's do it. All right, so this is a 150 round benchmark, so I'm not gonna have time to do everything, but I wanna show you some of the important ones, and then at the end, I promise I will honestly show you my entire target. So the first one we're gonna start with is target number 1, and it's 10 rounds, not timed, at 25 yards. So this is a really good warm up, just to kind of get your fundamentals set, no speed involved, just get your hits. Okay, so this next one is strong hand and weak hand, 5 rounds each, also not timed, from the presented position. is shaky. Okay, so this next one is going to be called draw to first shot, and it is timed at 5 yards. So this is my shot timer. Basically, I push a button and it gives me a beep, and then it times all of my shots so I can see how fast I'm going. It's gonna sound like this. That one was a 171, a slow. One, 4, 9. 1, 4, 8. 1, 1, 5. Last one. 1, 2, 2. Okay, so this next one is also timed, and I'm going to be doing one shot from my holster at the targets 11, 8, 9, 10 in that order. So it's kind of like a zigzag. I feel like I'm going to mess this up, but it helps me with target transition. So I'm going to do this twice, and it is timed. That was a 6, 4, 8. I definitely almost messed up that target. All right, one more time. That one was even worse. 6, 8, 0. So that one, I had a little bit of issue. My dot wouldn't appear because my grip was off. And then every single time for those two, I noticed that I tried to go from the 11 to the 10 straight across instead of from the 11 to the 8. So, wowza. All right, so this next drill is gonna help me with speed and also just with my trigger press. So it starts slow and then I have to end fast. And it's gonna be one shot at the number 15, 2 shots at the number 14, 3 shots at the number 12, and then 4 shots at the number 15. And the targets start small and then they get bigger, so my speed should get a little bit faster. This one's also timed, and we're gonna repeat it 3 times. So that was a 7, 7, 3. Let's try it again. So that was fun. I threw in a reload. That was 11, 9. One more time. And that was an 11, 4, 7. That one's kind of fun. I like that. All right, so this is a really fun benchmark, but I definitely have some work to do. You need to hold me accountable on dry fire at home, and then in a few months, I'll shoot this target again and see how I did. And shoot, you take this target and try to beat me. All right, we're not done training just yet, though. Have you ever experienced a malfunction? Probably. So coming up on the tip of the week, I'll show you how to fix them. Welcome to the tip of the week where I give you the ammo to become better shooters and responsible gun owners. And remember, whether you've been shooting your whole life or getting ready to fire your first gun, these tips are for you. And this week's tip are easy ways to clear handgun malfunctions. So gun jams can be caused by many factors, and if you've never been shown how to properly clear a malfunction, then when it happens, you probably pull the trigger, look at it, realize there's some junk happening, and hand it to a friend to have them fix it, right? I see it all the time. So I'm gonna go through 2 ways to identify a malfunction and how to safely clear it. Okay, so the first one is called a failure to fire, and this can be caused by no round in the chamber, meaning you inserted the magazine but forgot to put a round in the chamber. The magazine isn't inserted all the way, or it could possibly be that there is a bad round. Now, when I demonstrate this, we are using dummy rounds or snap caps. So when they are in the gun won't fire. Really good for training purposes. So what's gonna happen is maybe I inserted my magazine, but I forgot to put a round in the chamber. So when I go up to fire, it's just gonna go click. So step 1 is going to be take your finger off the trigger. And then the solution is tap, rack, assess. You're gonna tap the magazine to make sure the magazine is inserted all the way. Rack the slide to either put a round into the chamber or get that bad round out. And then you're going to assess your situation, meaning ask yourself, do I still need to shoot? Tap, rack, assess. If it's a bad round, that round will hop out. So these steps will help you clear a majority of malfunctions. Now, I know the last one, assess, is gonna upset some of you. I can hear you through the screen right now. Assess? She doesn't know what she's talking about. It's tap, rack, bang, because you're not gonna have time to assess. Stop it. The reason why I say and I teach assess is because you need to train yourself to always be aware of your surroundings, especially when a firearm is involved. You assess because if you're just learning how to clear malfunctions, your attention will probably go from your target to your gun because you're learning a new technique and trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with your gun. Your situation could have easily changed while you're trying to clear this malfunction. Your target could be closer, further, or other people could be in the way, etc. So I get it. Some of you aren't here to learn tactical self-defense training, but we should always know how to fix a basic malfunction. So that's why I do it. It's basic and it teaches you how to be aware of your surroundings and think while shooting. So like I said, tap, rack, assess will clear a majority of your malfunctions, but another type of malfunction is a double feed, and this can be caused by multiple rounds trying to get into the chamber at the same time. Mostly it'll happen if your magazine is bad. That spring in there is trying to push too many rounds into the chamber. It's a lot of stuff going on. So the fix, I can't tap, rack because my slide is already halfway back. It's stuck. So I can't tap, rack. So what I'm gonna do is step 1, when I go for my target and I realize something's wrong, I'm gonna take my finger off the trigger, I'm going to unload my gun, and then I'm going to reload my gun. This one can be a little bit of a pain because in order to unload, I can't just press my magazine release because there's tension on my magazine. So what I need to do is press my magazine release and then pull the magazine out. Unload, rack the slide 2 to 3 times to ensure that it's empty or just to get all the crap out of there. And then I can reload. And then once again, assess. That's it. No more giving your gun to your friend for your next fix of your malfunction. You got it now. Now that you've seen me practice malfunctions on the range, I highly recommend that you do the same because it's a skill that you always can work on and improve on. So I also recommend using dummy rounds like the ones that I've used. Just remember to get the right caliber. And that's your tip of the week. Phew, lots of good stuff today. Use those key pointers when vetting your next firearms instructor or use them as a tool to become a trusted one yourself. A long list of credentials is not the only thing that makes you a good firearms instructor. You have to be patient and honestly have to like people. And remember, don't slack when it comes to working on those malfunctions. Next week might just be one of my favorite episodes yet. Let's just say I'm gonna have a few extra guests, and can someone say girl power? And you know the drill. Don't forget to like, share, and comment on this video so I can talk 2A with you every week. My name is Paige Roux, and your firearm freedom just got reloaded.
You have to ask the question, how is the most heavily funded tribe have the poorest population?
Listen to me. My country is very because everything problem here. Don't have petroleum for bus and Cuban, for car, for drive, for nothing.
And it sucks. Socialism sucks. There's no other way you can describe it.
Welcome to Breakaway. Today's guest is a Paralympian who just medaled in the Tokyo Games after barely missing out on the podium in the Rio Games 5 years prior. He's a public speaker, a record holder in the long jump, and just plain inspirational. He joins us to share about his time prepping for and competing in this year's games. He'll share his story of what led him to losing his leg and how he uses that to inspire the next generation of athletes. I'm Jon Root, and this is Breakaway. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Breakaway. We have a bronze medalist from this year's Paralympic Tokyo Games, Trenton Merrill. Welcome to the show. Producer Brian, always good seeing you. Trenton, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm happy to be back in Arizona.
But can you talk to us a little bit about the preparation? Because it must have been wild having that extra year because of the pandemic and everything that was going on. Tell us about your preparation and how it compared to previous Olympics.
The preparation for this year was a lot different. I know for me, I felt like it was a blessing in disguise because I felt really good in 2020 and I felt really strong and powerful, but then I got injured and I was like laying on my back for like 2 months. Yeah, I couldn't move at all. And then I found out I had a herniated disc in my L5S1 and I was having like crazy sciatica. So for me, I was like, man, God's looking out for me and I gotta get on a rehab program like ASAP and I just gotta work my tail off and be ready to go. So it was a lot different like preparation this year than years prior because I hadn't had to go through that serious of an injury.
And then at the same time, I'm sure you're going through a lot of mental preparation too, because you're so used to like every 4 years, this is what I'm gonna be doing. But now you have a pandemic that hits and then you have an injury and everything. So it's like, how are you able to stay so strong and stay in good shape and get ready to compete and actually win a medal?
That's a great question. So for this year, because of the delay, I felt for me, this was just more time to work. So I like that. I wanted to make sure that I put myself in a good position to get on the podium, and I was just super hungry. So my goal was stay hungry and stay healthy.
Well, and Trenton, speaking of, back in 2016 in Rio, correct me if I'm wrong, you took fourth, performed really, really well, but barely missed the podium, to where then flash forward 5 years and you make the podium. Like, what was that? What was that like?
It was a really cool feeling to make the podium this year. I know that was a huge goal for myself, my team, and it was something that I told myself in 2016. I felt great in 2016 because I had performed really well. I broke the American record, and going for the next Paralympic Games, I set out for a goal to make the podium. So it was awesome to see my flag raised.
We always want to know about it, what happened in the Paralympics and the Olympics. Can you tell us a little bit more about the protocols leading to getting to the games? Because I'm sure it's even nuts getting on the flight, and then once you get there, what did you have to do, and was it a lot more than you expected?
I don't think I really had expectations because I knew that it was going to be pretty chaotic, and I knew that it was going to be a lot of things that were just out of my control. So as an athlete, one of the things I learned over the years was just focus on what you can control and like just stay in that zone. So going into Tokyo, before we even got there, we had to test like 3 days prior, the day of our flight. And then once we got into Japan, we had to test again before we could even leave the airport. And then once in the village, we received all these like test tube like kits. And then we had to test every day while we were there.
Wow. But walk us through when you medaled, because that must have just been, because also too, leading up to medaling, you fell once,
Yeah.
right? I saw a funny video from some of your buddies watching on Instagram, and were they sitting in the Olympic Village or something?
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh no, that's not what we're looking for. But like, how did that fall? Like, how were you able to stay like mentally prepared and then eventually make it to what your goal was, medal at the Paralympic Games in Tokyo?
Yeah, so leading up to getting the bronze, I was out there and I was trying to figure things out. I felt like I wasn't quite hitting my stride, and then that second jump, I was like, oh wow, yeah, I'm really not hitting it. I was like, okay, everyone just saw that. I was like, at least we got it on camera. I was like, okay, wipe the dirt off and get in your zone. And when I sat back down, I just kept telling myself, one jump at a time, one jump, just focus on one jump. And I knew that I was capable of getting on the podium. I knew that it was in me. And I just kept telling myself that over and over because I didn't want to think about results. I didn't want to see where I was stacked up. I just wanted to focus on executing. And so then finally I put one out there that got me in the bronze position and stayed there.
And then you got this bad boy. Can you actually brought the medal? Can you show that to us? Can you open up that box?
Yeah. I've never seen an Olympic medal.
I've never seen an Olympic medal either.
Check it out, dude.
Incredible. And I've never held one, and now I am.
Yeah, it's pretty
incredible.
heavy.
It actually is very heavy. Checking that out. So describe the emotion when that gets put around your neck.
Yeah, that was new for me because it was a Paralympic medal. So it was a different emotion for me. This was something that's priceless, something I couldn't buy. So I felt like this was is such an honor to represent USA. And like I said, when one of the coolest feelings for me was once I got this medal, then to turn around and even though it wasn't my national anthem, I would love to hear that. I still got to see my country's flag raised. And so I was proud in that moment and knowing that, I put USA up on that podium. So for me, this medal reminds me of all the hard work, the 5 years leading up to it, and the people that were in my corner and helped me achieve this.
And then real quick, while we wrap this up, you've been dreaming of this moment ever since you heard about the Paralympics. So is this lived up to the hype and everything that you've thought of and prepared for it?
So for me, my hype, there's still more.
Yeah.
So I'm still hungry. The bronze
you want
is great.
You want the gold.
Yeah, of course, man. The bronze is great, and it was a fun competition, but I know I'm capable of more. And so I want to go out there and I want to keep fighting. So it's been amazing. And looking back now, looking back at when I was in the hospital when I first lost my foot, it is for sure a dream come true, no doubt. So it's amazing, and super thankful for this one. Looking forward to more.
And I can't wait to dive into that when we go one-on-one next. We're going to tell the story about how Trent ended up losing his leg, how he heard about the Paralympic Games, and what he does to inspire the next generation. I'm Jon Root, and this is Breakaway. Welcome back to Breakaway. I'm sitting down and going one-on-one with Trent Merrill. He is a bronze medalist from this year's Paralympic Tokyo Games, bronze medalist in the long jump. But everyone wants to know what led to the Paralympic Games. When did you end up losing your leg, and how has that experience led to you becoming a bronze medalist representing the USA?
When I was 14 years old, I lost my foot. I was crossing the street with my best buddy, Scott, and we didn't see this car coming. The car didn't see us. And we were just crossing the street to go up to his neighborhood. And right when we crossed the intersection, or the center median where the bushes were, I just saw like a flash of a BMW. And boom, foot was crushed in between the dirt bike and the car. The doctors tried to save it for about a month and a half. Couldn't save it, had to amputate. That was my freshman year in high school. And then immediately got back into sports because that was my identity at the time. That's all I knew was competing. And then later on found out about Paralympics when I was about 19, 20 years old.
Because that's when you were in community college, right? You were going to Saddleback, you're like, what's the Paralympics?
Community college, go Gauchos. Yeah.
But when you found out the Paralympics and knowing that I have an opportunity to still be an athlete, I have an opportunity to show off my skills, whether I got one leg or I got two.
Yep.
So from there too, like, how did you realize that, like, I actually have a shot here?
So when I first found out about Paralympics, in my mind, I thought it was too good to be true. And then I got invited down to the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista. And right when I stepped foot on there, I remember hearing what God had told me in the hospital, that he had great plans for me. And I had thought that my dreams of becoming a professional athlete were taken away. And when I stepped foot on there at the Olympic Training Center, I felt like this was what God was telling me in the hospital, and that my dreams weren't taken away. They were just in a different arena. And so I immediately was just like full of confidence, like I'm fully capable of doing this. And I didn't know how good Paralympic athletes were. So I came in there pretty cocky and confident.
Yeah, you got humbled pretty quick.
Yeah, very quick. And it took me a lot longer than I would have wanted to make my first national team and then eventually Paralympic Games.
And then you were saying too, you were very, very into motocross growing up, and then that was actually a part of your accident. Are you still involved in motocross? Are you still dirt biking? Because that seems like something, you have an accident like that and you're like, I don't know if I want to be a part of this anymore.
I wish I was. So right after the accident, I got right back into racing motocross, and I continued with that for a few years. But when I got into track and field.
Right after you got into it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, you were hooked then. You loved motocross.
Yeah, it was addicting. I'm like an adrenaline junkie. And yeah, I got a need for speed. So that's why track and field kind of fit. And like when I long jump, it kind of reminds me of when I was racing and you learn to hit bigger jumps. It's very similar to taking off on a blade, because sometimes you get this like, you hit this like kicker, or you get this almost like catapult, and you're like, oh, like you're in air longer than you normally, or you have been in the past. So there's a lot of cool relations I've felt. And with motocross, it's something I'm going to visit back to a little bit later on in my career.
Yeah, but also too, how do you just spread this message to individuals that might be going through the same situation? They might have felt like their identities in sports, I just lost my foot, my leg, because I'm sure you're talking to plenty of different Paralympians that have some crazy stories. Oh, yeah. But it's so inspirational too, because we can watch incredible athletic feats during the Olympics, and then we watch the Paralympics and see how you make the most out of a tough situation.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody that's going through something tough where their identity is maybe being questioned, to just remember that you were created for a purpose and a reason. And for me, what I have noticed through my own personal experiences is the dreams that I had as a kid and the desires in my heart were God-given. And so I believe that intuitively you have those like feelings and that calling and that almost like pull. Everyone does. And I feel like that's God kind of like tugging on your heart and showing you where like the specific talents and things or resources that he's put in your life for you to fulfill.
And then tell us about that feeling you had when you were talking about it last segment, how the American flag got raised and the national anthem is playing, and you must have felt unbelievably patriotic, proud to be an American. And obviously that's something that we feel like is under attack consistently now. It's like, should you really be proud to be American? Like, yes, you want people to feel that, and I think we feel that in the Olympic Games.
Absolutely. For me, like I was saying earlier, I was remembering all the people that were in my corner, and all of them were from the USA. And I love my country. I love my friends. I love my family. I'm happy to be living here. I wouldn't want to live in any other country, and I wouldn't want to be representing in any other country in any Paralympic Games. It was hard for me to make this team. It's one of the hardest teams to make. If not, I think the hardest team to make. We have the most competitive athletes and the most stacked athletes. So when I made the first US team, I was beyond thankful, and then to make the podium and see my flag raised was an incredible feeling. It's priceless, and it kind of reminds me of like 4th of July when I see all the fireworks and I hear all like national anthem, or I hear any of our songs that are about our country and what the people before us have done.
And then at the same time too, people watch the Paralympics and they see prosthetics. And for me, I don't really know too much about them. So are there different prosthetic legs that you can have? Like, what's the science and like regulation behind that kind of stuff? Because I'm sure you can't have like F1, they have just different technology, and sometimes you have a little bit of an advantage, but like, what's the difference in the science behind those prosthetics?
So with the prosthetics, one of the global rules is it has to be commercially available for every athlete to be able to use. So that way it evens out the playing field.
So kind of like when you're shopping for track cleats, you can just be shopping for prosthetic legs.
Yeah. So that's the number one rule has to be commercially available. The other one that comes to my mind is for bilateral amputees. Those are people that are missing both feet or both legs. Is their height regulation. Whereas I'm a unilateral amputee, it's just 1 foot. If I go too tall or if I go too short, I'm gonna end up getting like back pain or hamstring problems. Something's gonna happen. So that's where the other regulations kind of come in, and most of the feet are made out of carbon fiber right now. I know that a lot of companies are looking into different materials, but right now it's carbon fiber, commercially available, and then the companies are starting to make more specific, event-specific legs. So like I have a long jump specific leg and a sprinting specific leg.
Appreciate you breaking that down too, and like telling us all about your journey and what led you to the Paralympics. But coming up next, we got to talk about tough situations. We've gone through some tough situations going through the pandemic, and Trenton is going to share exactly like how you can get through those tough situations and how he uses his platform to inspire the next generation. I'm Jon Root, and this is Breakaway. Welcome back to Breakaway. We have to talk about making the most out of the time that you have, because I know you use your platform for good, and you want people to know that there's more to you than just being an athlete. There's more to you, anybody watching the show right now, than just being involved in sports. So you had a really, really great and inspirational Instagram post that said, what if you knew you would die at the end of this year? What would you do with that time? And I think that's something that a lot of us were thinking about during the pandemic. We're hearing about death all the time. And then you basically went through a near-death experience yourself. So I'm sure that's something that's going through your mind. And how do you use your platform to inspire?
So how I use my platform to inspire is telling my story, sharing the struggle, because most people, if they can't relate to your exact struggle, there's something they can usually pull away from it, because everyone goes through struggles in life. No matter who you are, you're going to face some type of roadblock or hurdle or setback or detour. So I felt that for me, everything that I had been learning and overcome, it was important just to share and be a positive light. And when I had written that post, I had wanted to share what I was feeling and what I was learning at that time. And I felt like it was important, kind of like Solomon says, is it's important to think about death almost more than life, because you start to realize your time is limited and you never know when you're going to go. And so for me, I was like, well, what if I had 1 year to live? What would I want to do? Yeah. One, I wanted to go to the Paralympic Games. I wanted to put my country on the podium. I wanted to influence and positively impact as many people as possible. And I saw a way to do that with social media, because in one day, I can't reach as many people as I can on social media.
Yeah.
So I see social media as a great platform to positively impact as many people as possible and be a positive light to help change the world.
Yeah, and that's what I love about an Instagram post like this. You're talking about, you had specific goals, and you put that in that Instagram post, like grow closer to Jesus, positively impact as many people as possible, go to Tokyo, win a medal. You did that, and make wise financial decisions to leave behind for my family and friends. Yeah. So I think when people watch the Paralympic Games, like, I know I'm inspired.
Sure, I feel like every Paralympian is making an impact, whether they realize it or not. And sometimes it's hard to realize it when you're inside the frame, but for other people that are looking inside the picture, they can see so much more, and you can be so caught up in the frame that you don't realize how many other people are watching or viewing. So for anybody that did compete in the Paralympics, I say, shout out to you, because you made it, and whether you medal or not, you still had an amazing feat of making the games. Most people don't make the games, and then even more so, most people don't medal, and so just making the games is a huge accomplishment. And for those that medaled, like, congrats. And it's what I've learned being in the Paralympics and meeting all these other Paralympians is everyone's got a different story. Yeah. Everyone has a different struggle. And it's insane. Like, the one cool thing about being in the Village was if you don't have a disability, you're standing out.
That's great. And that's what I love about sports too, especially the Olympics and the Paralympics. Sports transcends everything else that's going on. Language, political party, sexual orientation. You watch that, and those people are here to compete. This person next to you, or you're competing against, you have no idea how to speak their language. You have no idea where they align. But in general, you're out there to compete. And do you feel like a connection to all those athletes then too, knowing that, like, I might not understand your language or where you're from or what you're going through, but knowing that they're still inspiring people back home for them?
Yes, I do, John, for sure. There's a crazy connection, at least I experience with the other athletes, even my competitors, because we're all competing in the same event. We've all been training hard every year. And I know how I feel personally is I've trained harder than you. So they more than likely are thinking that if they don't, then like good luck. But in the village, one of the coolest things I experienced and really noticed in Rio was that this is a village with every nation around the world, you know? Every country is in that village, and there wasn't war. It was like all the same common goal. And it was like united, but at the same time, you know, we're separated by countries and like, you know, what colors we wore and stuff, but at the same time, we're very much similar. And I thought that was one of the coolest things.
But I know you've been like just such an inspiration to me and so many people watching you in these games and watch you overcome so many struggles. It's been great to see. But coming up next, 40-second shot clock. This guy is gonna be on the hot seat. Questions he has not seen before. It's gonna be a good time. I'm Jon Root, and this is Breakaway. This is the 40-second shot clock. Trent Merrill is on the hot seat. You're ready to roll.
I am, dude. Let's go.
I got questions. Producer Brian's got questions. 40 seconds on the clock. Ready, set, go. Favorite Olympian of all time?
Usain Bolt.
Who's your role model?
Jesus.
Dream car?
Tesla.
Who would play you in a movie of your life?
Chris Evans.
Favorite TV show of all time?
Malcolm in the Middle.
Go-to cheat meal?
Oreos.
Morning or night person?
Morning when I want to learn, night off season.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Biggest pet peeve?
Not cleaning dishes.
What U.S. city should host the Olympics next?
LA.
Ooh.
I think you got through all our questions. I don't
Nailed
think
them.
anyone has ever gotten through all our questions.
8 seconds left?
With
Let's
8
go.
seconds left.
Let's go.
From there. Favorite color?
Red.
Boom. Look, with the buzzer sounding.
Breakaway record. Trent Merrill.
I don't think
Let's
anyone's
go.
gotten through. That was great. Good work. Good work.
Yeah.
And that is all the time we have today. Trenton, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations again on winning that bronze medal and representing the USA. Producer Brian, always a good time. Join us next week for another authentic, unwoke sports conversation you won't hear anywhere else. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this episode so we can keep the conversation going all week long. I'm Jon Root, and this is Breakaway. Hey there, it's Jon Root. Coming up next on TPUSA Live, tune into the newest episode of Politics, where host Alex Clark will tell you all about the White House shade war, Busy Phillips kicks Chris Pratt while he's down, NBA legend Magic Johnson doesn't write his own tweets, and so much more pop culture without the propaganda. Next on Politics.
You want to see something crazy? On PBS's Firing Line with Margaret Hoover, she interviewed a Chinese activist and dissident who challenged the CCP and became a political prisoner. Here's where it gets spicy. This entire interview is phenomenal and a must-watch, but this part in particular that I gotta show you. She tries to get him to say that President Donald Trump was an authoritarian, but look what he says.
In your book, you're describing the directives of Mao Zedong during the Cultural Revolution that would be distributed publicly every night. And then you write, this is your quote, they served a function similar to Donald Trump's late night tweets while in office. They were the direct communication of a leader's thoughts to his devoted followers, enhancing the sanctity of his authority. So, do you see Donald Trump as an authoritarian?
I don't, he
If you're authoritarian, you have to have a system in supporting you. You cannot just be authoritarian by yourself. But certainly in United States, with today's condition, you can easily have an authoritarian. In many ways, you're already in the authoritarian state. You just don't know it.
How so?
Many things happens today in US can be compared to Cultural Revolution in China.
Like what?
Like people trying to be unified in certain political correctness. That is very dangerous.
See, that whole Donald Trump is authoritarian angle that she was going for went boom because she was not prepared to have the mirror reflected back at her, as she is part of the media regime holding up the true authoritarians, the left. Anyways, I wanted to start the show off with that, but I do have a few more things I want to talk to you about. The war happening in the White House between President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. They absolutely hate each other. Busy Phillips attacked Chris Pratt when he was already down, doubling down on what cancel culture is saying about him. This celebrity has someone follow them around to come up with tweets based on what they say, and Hot Take Tuesday. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Very cool fun fact today. I'm wearing Hope Beauty lipstick, which is a conservative makeup brand. The more you know. When you pick your vice president solely because of their race and gender and not experience, you get the current disaster happening in the White House right now.
Look, here's the deal.
President Biden and Vice President Harris absolutely loathe each other, and their staffs hate each other too. If you listen to Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec, you've known about this shade war for months. He gives updates constantly. Now, though, even CNN can't deny what's going on, and they published their own article titled Exasperation and Dysfunction Inside Kamala Harris's Frustrating Start as Vice President.
We did it, Joe.
The article says, worn out by what they see as entrenched dysfunction and lack of focus, key West Wing aides have largely thrown up their hands at Vice President Kamala Harris and her staff, deciding there simply isn't time to deal with them right now, especially at a moment when President Joe Biden faces quickly multiplying legislative and political concerns. Yeah, you think?
Well, that's not true. You're saying things you do not know what you're talking about.
Whatever, Joe. The only person who hates the vice president more than you is your wife.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Busy Phillips, who absolutely sucks, decided that out of nowhere she was going to kick Okay. Busy Phillips, who absolutely sucks, decided that out of nowhere she was going to kick Chris Pratt when he was down after he admitted to being sad and depressed about all that drama surrounding him lately by the woke left.
That's really mean.
Busy said that Chris, calling his wife Catherine his greatest treasure, was effing weird and said it was an example of men patronizing their spouses. She said either you're the dumbest motherfucker on earth or you're a real righteous asshole.
What is wrong with you? I mean, what is your malfunction?
She also said he has possessions and she is one of them. God bless the man who has to find a non-triggering way to tell Busy that he loves her every day.
I'm so confused.
I don't even know what you're talking about. You know which celebrity hired an assistant to follow him around and write tweets for him based on things he says? Magic Johnson. Rob Lowe, who's really close friends with Magic, actually spilled the beans and said there's a woman who follows him around and turns things he says out loud into tweets. Now, Magic, who's 62 now, has no idea what a viral sensation he is on Twitter. He's got 5.1 million Twitter followers and tweets things like this. Wow.
He has such a way with words.
Here are a few more stories that you need to know with Hot Take Tuesday.
Hot Take Tuesday.
Kyle Rittenhouse's trial is nearing the end, and 500 Wisconsin National Guards have been instructed to wait on standby just in case people go crazy and rioting starts again.
I'm burning this down.
If you've actually watched any of this trial and not just gotten info on Kyle from gender studies majors on Twitter, then you'd understand that this kid is not a white supremacist. The people he shot weren't even black. They were all white, not that that should matter, and that it was 100% self-defense because they started to attack him first. But you're all in a cult and incapable of thinking for yourselves.
He was innocent.
Disney is moving all of their employees from California to Florida because Florida is a better place for businesses. But Disney execs still vote for leftist woke policies to get that high ESG score. If you know, you know.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
The View's Sunny Hostin says the show really needs a conservative host, but, quote, not big lies. The View is like an emotionally abusive boyfriend who says he's going to change, but then gets worse. You know, women like Candace Cameron Bure and Meghan McCain should start their own version of The View.
That's genius!
And a new study says people you've had conversations with think about you afterwards more than you think and like you more than you believe. Great! Now we can all spend more time over analyzing what we did or said at a party or a date.
I know what's going on. I hear you talking about me. I see you. I see you.
Wow, reading all of the reviews from you on the latest spillover is just blowing my mind. I interviewed Navy SEAL Robert J. O'Neill. He killed Osama bin Laden, and it's got rave reviews, also a bit controversial. Get ready because this week's episode is also going to be controversial. Subscribe to the spillover on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Support the OG show, Politics, by liking this episode. What do you think about the shade war going on between the president and vice president? What do you think is going to happen there? I really, really want you to share this episode to your stories just so people can see that first clip, at least from the Chinese man saying that it's today's America, not President Trump's, that is authoritarian. That is just so eye-opening. And if you appreciated the stories today that I chose, please hit the save button also. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Support Politics, the first ever conservative pop culture daily show, by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and of course, hitting the thumbs up. Also, our main home is on Instagram. Seriously, just trust me, that's where the real magic happens. Follow us there at Politics.